Boards, games, board games, board games. I might be talking about, I will be actually board games, but I'm not gonna shout. Today I'm going to be playing with 5 or 6 people, and I guess that means that we need some tricks to find games that we can all play together, because I think that if we split up, that would be sadder. I think it's lovely when people can all play the same game. High player counts. That is the name of the show. Kind of. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it says, wherever you are. 10 a.m.ish UK time for Bessie Beats and Board Game Blether. And today we're talking about the value of a high and flexible player count. I mean, look, I love QE. QE is a wonderful game, even in the original version, which was 4 players exactly. I mean, it reminds me of Deal with the Devil, 4 players exactly. There are a few games which are 4 players exactly, or 3 players exactly, or 2 players, and that's a lovely thing. I mean, when 2's actually fairly common, it's you and one other, and the social dynamic, you know that each other's going to turn up. But let's say it's 4 players, then, it's not like, okay, if that one person doesn't come up, well, you're not doing anything. It's a case of, well, with 4 players, maybe one person wants to invite someone else. Maybe someone gets sick at the last minute, and then you're down with 3. And the advantage of having these games that have flexible player counts fundamentally is that you need fewer games. So, I mean, that sounds like a weird thing to say as an advantage, isn't it? To say, well, the nice thing here, but there is that aspect of truth to it, that if I'm going to a games night, I don't want to have to take a whole selection of games for 2 players, for 3 players, for 4 players, for 5 players. Ideally, I want to take one box that plays all those player counts, another box that plays all those player counts. So when we get there, it's not just, well, this is the player count that we are, therefore that's the game that we're playing, but it's more like, hey, this is the player count we are. We could play any of these games, but which ones we feel most like playing right now? Or indeed, we could try all of them for a variety of experiences. I think there's something lovely about that. I'm looking at Grease Lightning beside me. It's 2 to 4 players. I mean, once you get above 4 players, this is a mildly unusual thing in that you've got to think, okay, what's gone? But first of all, let's get into the recent highlights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights. Recent highlights. Honestly, yesterday's bit of a tricky day. My main achievements were managing to make myself some, rice. I cooked some rice. It was not a massive thing, but I put the rice in with the water, with a little bit of spices and salt. Perfect amount of water. I also heated up a tin of curry in a saucepan and ate them together. It was delicious. I did then gorge myself and finish a whole bunch of chocolate, not gonna lie. But it was a tasty treat. Also, you know what? I read 1/3 of this book, Sagio Jimbo Saga, Book 9. So the first third is all about some murder mysteries, essentially, with Usagi and the inspector running around and trying to solve stuff, and then there's different things, and it all gathers together at one end. And I'm fairly sure I know that the chief inspector, not the good inspector, but I'm fairly sure I know that, like, there's something going on there, but like, it's never made 100% clear. Will it just linger like a cloud in the air, or will it come back in a future story? I don't know. And that's the lovely thing about Stan Sakai, that they build up this lovely cast of characters, but then they don't feel the need to resolve everything straight away. They give you most of the information, but then they leave these characters and then bring them back. This lovely cast of people, like yeah, that keeps recurring, the recurring nature. And it feels like a really living world, even though, if I'm being honest, I mean, like is common for most fiction, they lower the number of characters because it's more interesting if your protagonist keeps running into the same people around him. But yeah, that was lovely. Sitting outside, having a wee bit of a read, coming back in, having a wee bit of a read, waiting for the rice to cook. That was good. Maybe the chocolate was a bit too much, not gonna lie. But brilliant thing, brilliant thing. What's the little thing which is brilliant? I love comics. I love. I'm just going to open a random page that I've already seen. I love the mixture of words and pictures. I love being able to go through quickly and then at a certain point look back and then think, whoa, what was going on here? But specifically, I mean, look at these characters. They're just masterful. There's not too much detail. It's not, hey, look at me, look at me. There's the suggestion of the objects, and it's simple enough that your mind can sort of fill in the details. I mean, Stan Sakai's artwork, I just think, is glorious. And of course, this comic has done everything, I mean, except for the publishing. Stan Sakai does the writing, the art, penciling, things like all of the art, and also the lettering. I mean, that is pretty awesome. And it's been, but as I was reading it, oh, it's a more interactive medium than music or films, which progress linearly. I mean, when you're reading a book or reading a comic, it's like, wait a minute, that really happened? Whoa. And then you might read the same few panels a little bit more. With a book, with a comic, it's even more interactive, because with a book, you will be reading every single word, whereas with a comic, you won't be looking necessarily at every single line until wait a minute, was that? Oh, that was there. And then you noticed a little detail in the background that had just faded. So yeah, comics are brilliant. As always, feel free to comment, ask questions, like, follow, and let me talk about the value of a high flexible player count. I think there's something lovely, whether it's in your living room, whether it's in a bar, whether it's at a convention, which might be in a bar, I don't know, or in the hotel lobby. So having a bunch of people, it makes me think of Bonanza, where I was, looking through that, and a bunch of us were thinking of playing a game, and then two more. And then originally we were going to play one of Dave's games, which was like 2 to 4, and then just looking at it, and it was like, ooh, that, yeah, we don't know it, but okay, I'll read the rules. I'm curious enough to learn a new game. And then we met another couple of people, so there were 5 of us. And then these new people, the lovely couple, we thought, okay, let's play together. What's going on here? Let's look through what games you've got. And I wasn't so keen on a bunch of things that I knew. I wasn't so keen on Bonanza. And then it's like, oh, this other game. Well, this plays 5 players. Like, yeah, I'm interested in trying this one. But then we ended up having 7 of us because another 2 friends came over. It's like, okay, well, there's 7 now. Bonanza does go up to 7. And it's not my favorite game. I mean, it can, like, I think it's genius how Bonanza, the game, forces you to trade because sometimes you've got things that are actively terrible for you, so you need to give them away. Sometimes you even would be willing to give them away for nothing, which is really interesting. But then we kind of had this aspect of, okay, future favors, which really made it interesting because actually bringing future favors into it and saying, okay, I'll give you first refusals, or I'll give you two first refusals, or I'll give you second refusal, or first refusal in perpetuity. This was an interesting lingo. And so Bonanza, yes, by virtue of having the ordering of the card, saying, I need to get rid of this thing, and having limited planting spaces. This one's actively bad. I can only plant so much and I have to plant it. So I will do this. But sometimes you do just spite your face by cutting off your nose and plant something, even though it's terrible for you. But it's, yeah, a really fascinating game. But for me, I feel like it's a little bit played out. It can sometimes be flat, but playing that game with the seven of us, it's allowed us to all be together. Hello, Josie. I was just talking about Bonanza, which was funny. I was just saying like the value of a high flexible player count. Because yes, it's allowed us to all be together. And I don't think Josie will mind me saying that Josie was there, one of the lovely friends. And it's allowed me to get to know this couple that I'd never met before. It's allowed me to kind of get to know one of the other two friends a bit more, because one of them I knew very well from previous years at UK Games Expo. One of them I knew not so well. And so it was like, okay, wow, this is your birthday? That's amazing. And like kind of getting a sense of how they behave. And I think that, sure, it's nice sometimes splitting up into two threes or a three and a four. But whilst it's nice to be playing near each other, there's always that sense of, oh, but we're not quite part of that group. We're not. And sure, the quality of the game does make a big difference. But I think, yes, Josie puts it very well. It's useful to facilitate allowing to keep the group together. And so why am I talking about this today? I'm talking about this because tonight I'm planning to head off back to where I used to live in Haringey and go to the Salisbury pub and meet some people. I'm planning to be there for fairly early, potentially 5-ish. And what I said is we'll play some games. And one of the most of the people are like, yeah, sure, we can play social games, we can play party games, it's all good. And those kinds of games are generally really good at playing. Okay, sure, you might have to play 4 players minimum or 3 players minimum sometimes, but then they do expand massively. And so whether there's 5 or there's 6, it can still work. But when you get to light strategic games, I mean, you've got, sure, some really long stuff like Sidereal Confluence or Mega Civilization. You've got Bonanza. You've got Between Two Cities, which I have and might actually take. I might actually double check I'm the Boss. I can't remember how many that plays up to. Sushi Go, that's a game that I got recently. But yeah, for me, a game night is partially, it's about sort of solving this puzzle and working out what's going on. But a large part of it is also just about being together, not just across the table in someone else's room, but having some interaction. And I do like games with a bit of interaction. I mean, much as I enjoyed Fife, and I'm going to keep telling everyone that I beat the designer. Maybe the designer's not particularly good at games. I don't know. But anyway, it was nice, but other than looking around to see what tokens everyone else had, and it was a bit of a solo experience. But then again, a solo experience can be a nice thing, because especially with a simultaneous selection game, you're working this out, there's no one holding it up, and that leads to a really nice game at a higher player count, because quite often at a higher player count, the issue is people take turns, it can take a while. So how do you solve that? I mean, obviously, you can have it that everyone's actively involved on your turn. Like, Bonanza, where people are trading and people are like, oh, what do you flip over? Oh, do you have that? And sometimes it'll be like, well, I'm not involved in that trade. I might start chatting a little bit with the person to my right who's also not particularly involved in that trade. Not like for minutes and minutes, just like a few seconds. But it allows us to feel like it's not going to go all the way around the table before it comes back to us, which I think can be the worst part of a high player count turn-based game. I mean, the other thing you can do is play something strategic and speed-based, which there aren't many of. Actually, I wonder if I could take Camelot. I should take Camelot if so yeah, there's not that many speed strategy games. I mean, sure, you've got a couple by Dave Turksey, you've got Camelot, Tom Dolly, you've got Space Alert. I mean, I wouldn't really class Escape the Temple as super strategic. I mean, a game about selecting 7 cards, speedily searching for synergies, although I do feel like it's not quite out yet because the old version is, yeah, hopefully with the few numbers twisted, it's going to be even better. So yeah, looking forward to the second edition. But anyway, and then you've got obviously Hyper Wars, which I talked to Fabrizio Leotti about yesterday, and we'll be chatting to them about tomorrow, where we talk about what more could be done in the speed strategy space. I think this is a really interesting thing, and there's definitely a lot more games that could go into the speed strategy space. But again, speed, it can be a bit of a barrier. People saying, oh, well, I'm too tired to be quick. Maybe you don't have the energy for a speed game. Maybe you're just a little bit slower and that. But then having that, you need to make good decisions, but you need to make them quickly. Like for me, I playing an abstract strategy game with a 1 or 2 minutes chess clock. For me personally, I think 2 minutes is a good time for like something like Corridor or Ominos, which is fairly light. And I would absolutely love playing more in that manner, in that kind of blitz manner. And I've played a lot of Go like that online. So you've got speed, you've got interacting with other people on your turns. You've got obviously stuff like simultaneous selection, like on the gears, which, yes, it's a bit simplistic. It's about guessing what other people are going to do based on their motivations. You've got, what's that space game? Race for the Galaxy. Race for the Galaxy, the card game, where everyone's playing a thing at once. And so it's like, well, it doesn't matter whether there's 2 or however many of you. You've got, again, simultaneous action in between 2 cities. And the lovely thing there is that it's not after the simultaneous action. I think ideally for a good game for the kinds of games I like, I'm going to rephrase that because I don't want to say other games are necessarily bad games. Yeah, you want to have a little bit of interaction. It's not enough to just say, okay, the first person to get a line gets this bonus 3 points, and the first person to do that gets this bonus 3 points. For me, it's, okay, going through the turns in order like you do in Race for the Galaxy, or consulting with your partners like you do in Between Two Cities, or trading, like that is something that I really feel can be good. And fundamentally, games are lovely. I mean, even if it's one player, I enjoy that puzzle to solve. I enjoy going through the motions sometimes. I enjoy the satisfaction of seeing my numbers rise or working out, okay, what can I do here? Which is the best path? And having that mental puzzle, sometimes telling a little story to myself, or sometimes when it's just 2 of us, having a private moments. And I'm really proud of some of the games that I've made that still play fairly well at the lower player counts, like a game about quickly grabbing creatures, that's totally different, and counting your turnips or beetroots, I'm going to call it. But that plays fairly well with 2 players, and I think it plays fairly well with 9 players if you've got all the decks. I mean, if you want to go above 9, then you kind of need to bring in the radishes as well, which is probably not great for a first-timer. So yeah, if I had 10 people and if I had 11 people, like including myself, I'd probably, yeah, but that's a pretty solid player count, and I'm proud of that. And what that means is that then, if there's just a couple of us, we can play it together because life is better together. I think that's the key thing. Life is better when, at least in my opinion, when people are around me, when it's, hey, we're interacting together. We're not just all solving this puzzle on our own, or me playing one game over here, you playing one game over completely somewhere else. But even when it is multiplayer solitaire, true multiplayer solitaire, like Many Mickle Makes a Muckle, or Take It Easy, or Number 9. Like Number 9, if you get multiple copies, then you can play with an infinite player count. And that's nice enough. I mean, it's not as interactive, but even there, you get the shared moments at the end when it's, oh, I got this score. What did you get? And you compare yourselves. And in the middle of the game, you've got some, oh, interesting, you're doing that. Well, I'm doing a very different thing. Or, oh, you're doing that. I'm doing the exact same thing. How interesting. And at some points, you start diverging. At some points, you start converging. And there's this element of comparison. And there's an element of being alone together. Hello, Xate, it is lovely to see you, and I guess what I'm talking about is the kinds of games that, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, do you enjoy Take It Easy? Do you enjoy what's the highest player count that you actually enjoy? I mean, do you enjoy Between Two Cities? I imagine that's a little bit too light for your taste, but I'm very curious. But I guess what I'm saying here is having games that allow you to play for like 3 up to 7, that allows you to get more people together, gather more, and it fosters what I think is actually important, which is being with others. Because whilst games are cool and all, I mean, they're only really cool when you're playing them. I mean, otherwise, as much as I like reading through the rules and looking at the cards and imagining how this will work, or sometimes playing a solo game, it's always better with others. That's my personal opinion. So yeah, see, it says, I like just one and code names, which are higher player counts. Yeah, just one, that works really well. That's a higher player count. I mean, for me, code names, once you get beyond, I mean, I guess like 2 teams of 3 can work fine. I also like something which is just a bit more agency for my, like a bit more authority. And so sometimes if the groups are too big in code names, I feel like, I'm not really having much impact. But I feel like top 10, for me, I'm really excited about this being released in English. I've only played it in French. It was nominated for Spiel des Jahres. I don't know if anyone else has played it, but top 10, it basically, for me, combines wavelength and on a scale of 1 to T-Rex, and I guess not really code names, but what happens there is there might be a category saying, okay, let's talk about superheroes or hypothetical superpowers from the most pathetic to the most amazing on a rating from 1 to 10. And everyone secretly gets a token, which might be numbered 1 through to 10. And then you need to go around the table saying something that correlates to what number you have. And then there's one judge who tries to pick everyone. And that feels like everyone's doing the interesting creative bit. So if you have a little bit more desire for creativity, then well, wavelength allows one person to do the creative thing and everyone else is doing the, okay, what did they actually mean? And whereas if you, like me, believe that the creative bit is the more entertaining bit, then top 10 basically works so well. Yeah, exactly. It's similar in genre to wavelength and on a scale of 1 to T-Rex. Josie says, I like having up to 12-ish, sometimes even more when we have a large number join our gaming group. It means we can play at least 1 or 2-ish games with everyone there. And I can just... how much? I mean, this is Luc Garou Epic Battle Puru Nui. It's the French version of it's the French version of a game that doesn't technically exist in English, but it's a mashup of One Night Ultimate Werewolf, One Night Ultimate Werewolf Daybreak, and One Night Ultimate Vampire. And it's got like, it's kind of like a greatest hits album where they mash it all together. And I'm slightly surprised this only goes up to 10, but even, I thought it was slightly higher. But yeah, I definitely see that value of having, okay, even if there is a limit to how many you can have a meaningful game with. Josie and I were discussing this. Like, if I had 300 people, if you have like 300 people at a convention and you play a mega game with all 300 people that lasts, let's say, 2 hours, can you really say that you've played with them if you weren't interacting or if they were potentially even in a different room? Like, a lot of LARPs get to that scale. And I think there is value in having more what I'd call mega party games, which Elizabeth Hargrave sent me a link for some traditional things which were done for youth groups, which is really interesting. And I'm working on Wordy Connections, which is definitely a thing that I would like to play at my leaving do, if not before. But having a game that can play with large numbers, but then at what points have you played with someone? At what points have you made a meaningful connection? I mean, it's never a binary. And as much as everyone might enjoy having simplicity in life, some sort of, hey, this is what you've done, this is what you've not done. It's like you've done a bit of this, you've done a bit more. And at what points you've done enough to say, yes, I've done that. I mean, have I seen London? Sure, I've seen parts of it. I've like lived here for almost 10 years now. You'd hope that I've been out, I've cycled, past the major landmarks. I mean, I'm sure there's at least one major landmark that I've not cycled past. But have I seen London? I mean, if someone were to say, oh, you know what London is going to this particular location. And yeah, Josie, that's a really interesting point. We had other indicators on, is it playing with them? If you don't create a two-way meaningful conversation or connection, because you could say you are playing with thousands if you do the lottery. That's a really interesting one. And if you never communicate, like if I play the lottery and then I phone up, let's say, myself and someone else randomly in a shop. I mean, I'm not condoning gambling, but let's say we were playing bingo in a hall, because I've been to an American-themed bar where there was a folding of a flag and there were guns, and this is a real American-themed bar in Glasgow, by the way, and they've got shooting at each other with blanks, and there's line dancing. So that's basically what Scottish people think of Americans. And everyone wears cowboy hats And so it's kind of like when you go to an Irish bar, and it's like, that's not really what Ireland is. But anyway, um, but yeah, like I was playing bingo, and was I playing with the person across the other side of the building who I maybe never actually spoke to? Ah, like, and if I was playing the lottery with someone, and then let's say I walk into the shop with a stranger and they say, okay, I'm going to buy the lottery, and I say, you know what? How about I buy the lottery as well? I think that's we've had words together, we've had some sort of connection. Is that meaningful? Again, what meaningful isn't a binary, it's all a how meaningful is it? And say it says, yeah, like I'd been living here for half half a decade, and I hadn't been to the Sky Garden, and that's an amazing thing. And I'm really glad that Say took me there. And it's like, again, I've never been to, well, I've not been to all the tube stops. I would actually like to cycle to literally all the tube stops before I leave London. That would be quite cool, just to be everywhere. So are we playing with each other if we go on Twitch and watch Loserpalooza and both play along to something like Patchwork with zero player interaction? I think that if we compare scores at the end, that comparison of scores brings a little bit of interaction. I'm not going to say it's the most interaction, but that comparison, it is like being alone together. It's like going to a cinema and then, yeah, let's say I was playing it, and I mean, I wouldn't do this if I was actually playing it. I would be typing in chat. But let's say I typed literally nothing in chat, and the only thing I typed was, "Oh, I got this many points," and you said you got this many points. We've still got the satisfaction that we both went through that same experience at the same time with exactly the same inputs, and we can compare that with each other. And so, yeah, sure. I mean, I don't think the who wins is really relevant to whether we play together. I mean, you could beat me by 10 points, or we could draw. Either way, we have that, oh, say beats me by 1 point, or oh, say beats me by 20 points. I don't know. Maybe I did terribly. Anyway, I think and that is one really nice thing about, yeah, that is actually the best thing about zero zero interaction games. When during the game there's no interaction, you can raise that arbitrarily. And I'm fairly sure, yeah, I don't know where it is, but I've got Welcome to Dino World somewhere, which is a game by Jane. I can't remember the name of the original designer. I did some development for it along with Dave Turksey and Nick Shaw. And yeah, it's a fine game. It's a typical roll and write. It's a little bit meatier than most things. At that point, it was meatier, and then Turksey was like, no, not meaty enough. Cesar, you were constraining me. Um, and But either way, the specific roll and write is not important. The point is, as soon as you've got zero interaction, yes, that lessens that thing, but you still have that point of comparison, and that means that you can play 50 of you all in one room. It's like when you're playing in a pub quiz. I think part of the appeal is that you are kind of there, not just with your own group, but that you then get to see with other people, oh, how well did you do? What was the tricky bit for you? And then you hear potentially that groan of frustration over a difficult question, or that laughter over a shared joke. And yeah, lots of love for Turksey. And apparently in this hypothetical game, I was beaten by 100 points. I mean, that sounds a bit high, but I mean, was I even playing then? I mean, if the scores are like 120 and 20, I guess we can laugh about it afterwards. Like, that would be also an interesting point of interaction. And Josie says, I think it's an interesting philosophical argument. which point does a game stop being a game due to the amount of people and the lack of direct communication? Um, I mean, I would say it's always a game, but the question is, at what point are you no longer playing together? And I would say I agree with you that, like with the national lottery, or yeah, so people pick numbers and then so there is a decision to be made, although the decision is kind of meaningless, and then some people win or not. And that I would not say is playing a game with other people, but I mean, it's whether it's a game or not doesn't have to do with the amount of interaction, I wouldn't say. And yeah, I would say that, yeah. The lotto, everyone is comparing against the score, so it's still a mass game. Yeah, I would say it's still a game because you're still comparing yourself against the target score. So you said, and if I say, "Oh, I won the lottery," then frankly, that's so unlike. Or if I say, "Hey, I won the lottery, I got £10," I mean, that in itself is kind of, "Oh, cool." And I don't know if your reaction would be different whether you'd played it or not. And that's an interesting thing. Like, I mean, I would say that it's not, in my opinion, a good game, but like also, what's the definition of good? Like, it raises money, it gets people playing. I mean, gambling, is gambling a game? I mean, I'm not sure if I want to go down that road. Um, but I mean, that whole conversation. But yes, I do believe that things can be a game without any interaction, but fundamentally, even just being at the table, playing a roll and write, playing something with zero interaction, like if we busted out 3 copies of number 9 and we're playing 12-player number 9, I mean, I think there's don't know why I'm fixated on number 9 because I saw people playing it and then we almost were about to play it at KCON. But yeah, if we were to play 12-player number 9, zero interaction, the only interaction is the comparison of scores at the end. And mathematically, there's the possibility of looking at each other and saying, "Oh, well, I'm in the lead, so I should be more cautious," or, "Hey, I'm behind, I should do more, take more risks." But then realistically, we're not going to do that. And I think the bigger point of interaction is simply being around the table, going through those experiences together. It's like when you're on a walk together. Seeing the same landscapes doesn't mean that you've interacted with the sights of these landscapes. You don't have to go off and, you know, play on a swing to get, well, a swing isn't a two-player thing. I mean, you don't have to go and play on a seesaw together to say that you've been to the playground together. You could both be playing on the swings and then both be going like on other things that, and then go off. And I would still feel like, okay, I've had this shared moment, I've had this shared experience, we've seen the same things. And it's the same with any one-player game. You've gone through the same journey. And yeah, I mean, I do hope that you aren't too upset at not having played it. I'm fairly sure I can, play it with you when you come over, and I can teach it and probably give you the game if you want it. But yeah, it it says it's fine, not great, but fine. The point isn't to look. People are important. People are, in my opinion, it's games which have a flexible player count are more able to suit a variety of social experiences. And that's fundamentally what games are for, in my opinion, to facilitate those social experiences. So, yes, um, my own Kitty Cataclysm, which plays 2 to 5. And I guess at this point, I'm going to wind down and start wrapping up because I've been going almost an hour. I do have a Kickstarter running for those who are unaware. If you've not already backed it, even if you have no interest in the thing, please go and, if you wish to support me, backing it for £1 will be a lovely thing, and it allows more people to see it. It's better at the start, but backing for £1 really does help. And how flexible are these games? I mean, a game about drawing creatures, complementing the drawings and complementing the complements. I mean, you could play it with more than 5. It is going to slow down, but other than the slowing down, if you are willing to listen to it, like we could have played this 7 players, like 2 players, it works fine. It's like a shared private moment. For me, 3 to 5 is my preference, and above 5, it starts slowing down. Conversely, speed games, again, a game about counting cats, shapes, and colors that keeps getting trickier. This works really well, like up to 8, maybe even more. As long as everyone can reach the middle thing. The nice aspect of this is because people are going up and it's getting harder for different people at different rates, everyone will probably get a chance to slap. Conversely, I would not advise playing a game about quickly counting, a game about quickly matching words to pictures, but never words to words or pictures to pictures with more than 4 players. I mean, give it a go if you really want, but the issue then is that there's only like 1, maybe 2 matches available at a time, and so having too many people, it means that potentially one person's going to be left out, which I think is kind of the case in a lot of these matching games. I mean, Twin It, just because of the ridiculous number of things and because of the team version, the team variants can actually work really well. Actually, that does make me realize that maybe there could no, it wouldn't work with a team variant like Twin It, because the reason that Twin It works with a team variant is because of that slight confusion, because Tom Vashaw is really super skilled at making graphics that are similar but not so similar. And then a game about cute comical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises. Yeah, I would say that's 4 to 8-ish. And the reason that I put 8-ish in some of these player counts is because there's not really any upper limit. I mean, could you have 9? Sure, I think that 8 is slightly better than 9, but could you have 10? Sure. I mean, I think that for me, and I've played it with 11 at UK Games Expo, it was fine, but I think it was a little bit too long just counting up what votes there are and what was the most popular thing. And so, yeah, that's it. And so, yeah, it sounds like when I go and visit Xate, I will be having many social experiences where we turn the piles of potential into entities of experience. But yeah, anyway, let's what do I do now? Question of the day. Here's a little question before we go on our way. So my question of the day to you is, what do you think about social deduction? Are you a fan? Yeah, generally I'm wondering, because one of the people, newcomers to the group, was like, I'm not a fan of party games. Like, I'm not a monster. I will play just one, and they named something else at Christmas, but I'm really wanting to play something that's a little bit strategic. Like, and then their number 1 picks were like New York, or and but yeah, for some people, social deduction is just not okay because they don't like lying. They maybe would prefer having something to puzzle out rather than it being about the people, and some people feel uncomfortable about lying to other people. But I do notice with social deduction games, it is quickly a web of, okay, what's going on, learning about the people. And that is why I do like social deduction games, and I like playing them over and over, personally. I love them. Um, yeah, let me know what you think of them. Otherwise, over to you. What are you up to? You can share button if you want to. I am going to be doing a bit of writing, have maybe a quick walk around the block, have, yeah, got, yeah, some bits and pieces generally that I have to do. Have a business meeting at 2 o'clock about how to distribute and ship stuff when I leave the country. I'm trying to get everything set into order. But other than that, after, yeah, that finishes, I'm going to just skedaddle and head off and, yeah, go off and play a few games. I've obviously got to decide what I'm going to take. What are you up to? Josie says, I love social deduction. Kate says, I'm going to book the rest of those train tickets for me and my great friends all home from Nuremberg. And yeah, I'm excited to go to, and then probably start looking at fun things to do in Nuremberg. That sounds fantastic. And I hope you have a wonderful day and people aren't being too horrible on Board Game Arena. I mean, look, just for the record, I'm not saying people are normally horrible on Board Game Arena. I'm just saying, the 1% of people, it's all about dealing with the worst dregs when you're a community manager, I guess. So to recap and wrap up before we finish up, Josie is recoloring the hair. What color? Is it going to be pink again? Is it going to be more red again? Or is it going to be something else? I am curious. To recap and wrap up, playing games with other people is lovely. Usagi Ojimbo, I am so much in love with the artwork. Comics allow us to jump forwards, jump backwards. It's a bit more interactive, and there can almost be a bit of a hidden object type game within a comic, which is really interesting thing to ponder about the interaction. I guess you can say that there's this potentially puzzle within a film if you watch a whodunit. We enjoy just one. Other people like code names. And people like different types of games. But sometimes it's nice to just get everyone together on the one, around the one table, or push some multiple tables together if you need to, and actually feel like you've conversed, like you've had a good game together. Similar but slightly orange. That sounds exciting. I look forward to seeing the photos. I guess, yeah, Dragon Meet's quite a while away, so it'll probably have faded a bit again by then. But as always, if you want to check me out, I am Stuffed by Bez in all of the places. Tomorrow I'm having Fabrizio Leotti back on again to talk about strategy and speed games. It'll be a fairly quick show. And honestly, like with my streaming, I would like to have more guests and I would like to be more organized, but I don't want it to become like, I want to strike a balance between doing something that I enjoy doing every day, because I do like having this one thing special. I mean, not going to lie, when there's an occasional day where it's, you know what, I would kind of like to just sleep in until 1 o'clock or whatever. But having this daily routine is very nice, especially when I'm feeling a bit down, and then a couple of lovely people pop in. Please share, spread the word. Thank you very much, everyone out there. As always, if you've watched this after the fact, then comment away and I will reply to all the comments that I see. Otherwise, if you're watching live, or I'll see you maybe tomorrow, and bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, bye, everyone. Bye, bye. Bye, bye. Bye, bye. Bye, bye.